Yes, so please everyone, please everyone mute themselves. Hello everyone, I'm glad to have you here with us. We are recording this webinar, so if you prefer, when questioning time begins, you can write your question in the chat and I will read them to the speakers. Okay, for the last 2 years, COVID and the pandemic have placed our everyday lives on hold and have exacted considerable damage to the national and local economies. The city of Hamilton established an economic recovery task force to try and mitigate this new reality. According to the Hamilton Chamber post-COVID report, the research into Hamilton economic recovery has revealed many structural changes, especially the need to address societal inequalities and ecological challenges that confronts us. We have with us today two very knowledgeable Hamiltonians who can shed light on Hamilton economic recovery programs and policies, as well as what we can expect to see in our economy looking forward. In tonight's webinar, each will give a short presentation. Each of them will give a short presentation regarding the topic, follow up by questions and answers periods. Okay. Our first panelist will be Dr. Benson Honeck. Most of you there already know him, but I'm going to exalt him anyway. Benson Honeck has a PhD from Stanford University and is the Teresa Cascioli Chair in Entrepreneurial Leadership, the Groot School of Business at McMaster University. His research activities include over 120 peer-reviewed publications with approximately 15,000 citations worldwide, focusing on professional ethics as well as subjects such as ingenuity, nascent entrepreneurship, social capital, and entrepreneurship in transition environments. He's past president of the Canadian Council of Small Business and Entrepreneurship, past chair of the Academy of Management Ethics Education Committee, and a founding board member of the Africa Academy of Management. He's also co-founder of the Refinery Social Innovation Virtual Incubator, supporting marginalized entrepreneurs. Our second panelist is Abhija Hamdu. She is Executive Director for Workforce Planning Hamilton, where they proactively address labor market issues, all while envisioning a thriving Hamilton community where individual and organization can achieve the potential. Khadija is passionate about community development in the Hamilton region, where all individuals have access to an inclusive, diverse, and equitable community. She's also the founder of Melanin Market Hamilton, where she highlights and celebrates Black and people of color businesses and creators in the greater Hamilton region. So thank you for attending, and thank you, Khadija and Benson, for agreeing to be our panelists.
Yes, fine.
Where?
Yes, I would like Benson Honeck, Dr. Benson Honeck to start presentation.
Okay, thanks for such an amazing introduction. You know, that's what happens when you pay your wife tons of money. Okay, I promised Dina that I would definitely get something going about Hamilton. I'll begin with Hamilton because that's sort of where we're tasked to think of. So I'm going to share this screen with you, which is just, hopefully you can see that.
Yes.
This is just a quick look at sort of what's happened in the last 150 years in Hamilton. Something I just threw together really quick, and it just it shows the changes in the workforce. And what you can see is, you know, whereas previously Hamilton was mainly composed of laborers and some skilled artisans, now what we've seen is growth in professional and commercial activities and semi-skilled. And that, you know, is just going to keep accelerating. We're going to see more and more of that. And that's something that we need to understand, that COVID or not COVID, a lot of the labor market changes that we're experiencing are going to happen. And when we have ruptures, changes, radical transitions, that only often accelerates the transitions that we expect to see anyway. So I'm going to be talking just for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm going to share with you some different things about labor markets in Canada, what's happening, entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, And I'm going to finish with just a kind of short 1.5-minute video that shows you what kind of we're initiating here in Hamilton and elsewhere regarding trying to ameliorate some of the problems associated with COVID. So what I want to do is first show you a slide here. I can get that up. This one down. And it's going to be something, we often think tragedies, depressions, economic transitions, 2008 are just problematic and wipe out businesses. And in fact, the history of business is really one of churning, which is old businesses tend to sort of go by the way of the buggy whip, and new businesses take their place. So hopefully you can see this screen, which says, are you expecting to start a business in the next year? This is a comparative, a global comparison. It's called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. And this is actually sort of the glass is half full reality. And if you see Canada over here, Canada is like pretty high in terms of, to a large extent or to some extent, people are thinking of starting a business in the next 3 years. Globally, that's a pretty good number. So we're doing pretty good in terms of those expectations. And you would think, well, why would anyone start a business during a pandemic? Or why would anyone start a business during economic difficult times? Well, ironically, that's when people typically are more likely to start a business, because for a few reasons. One is they may have lost their job. Maybe what they were doing, they can no longer do. Or maybe they had a job that they got sick of, and sort of COVID gave them an opportunity to say, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to do this drudgery for a very long time. Maybe now's the opportunity for me to try something else. So at the end of this talk, I'll show you a video where we're actually doing things, sharing trying to facilitate women in Hamilton to do just that. So I'm going to have to stop share and share again for a different screen. This is what we call early stage entrepreneurial activity. Hold on a second. I don't know if that one is coming across correctly. Share this one. Okay, is that coming through here? Everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So this is the difference between, and again, this is Canada. I'm just, globally using Canada now, but we'll come back to Hamilton in a minute. This is, and you can see here that Canada, we've got about twice as many people in early stage entrepreneurship activities than as established businesses. So what that's saying is there's a lot of vigor, there's a lot of newness, there's a lot of activity happening. We're talking about last year, right in the middle of the pandemic. I'm not talking about 5 years ago or pre-pandemic levels. So what that's saying is that there are a lot of startups happening. Yes, it's true that there are a lot of businesses that are closing. We see them if you walk down Main Street. If you walk down Main Street in Dundas or Lock Street or Main Street in Hamilton, you're going to see a lot of stores closing up, but you're also going to see new things opening up. People are using pop shops. People are using the opportunity to start new businesses. And if you can start a business during this period, during a sort of a pandemic or during a depression or during a recession, then the business that you probably started is going to much stronger, much healthier than if you start a business during, say, a boom time. And that means that there's durability to this. There's a kind of a positive churning. And, these pandemics, 2008 was when we had things like Madoff was discovered, right? So we had all these really negative things happening in the economy that we were unaware of. And a pandemic, a recession, a depression, even a war, I hate to say it, all of these things kind of bring out some of the best and some of the worst. So we discover, who's really been kind of scraping along or been cheating or been, maybe subterfuge or not really having full integrity. We also see people sort of on their boots, pulling their bootstraps up and saying, wait a minute, I'm going to make this happen. And that to me is very refreshing. So if I show you another slide, if I can get this one right, here, I think it's the right one. It's this one, yes. Okay, so this is those that see new opportunities because of the pandemic, and those that do not see opportunities behind. Here again, we see Canada is reasonably good in this model. But what we see, generally when we look at this is we're going almost a third of people see opportunities through a pandemic. This is a definite glass as half full scenario, right? And it's not something that the media focuses on. The media has all been focusing on business closures and the pain of the pandemic. And the media almost never focuses on people that are really doing amazing things, that are really saying, wait a second, I don't like this lousy job that I've had for the last 5 years. Now I'm unemployed. What else can I do? Can I do something more meaningful in my life? Can I do something that excites me? Can I do something that helps my community more and maybe helps my family more and maybe is more enjoyable? And the fact of the matter is, if people are passionate about what they do, if they enjoy what they do, they're going to do it much better. It's going to be a win-win for everyone. We're all going to have healthier people, happier people, economically more viable people. And it's all about choice. It's all about creating choice and creating opportunities. And I'm going to talk about some of those opportunities that can be made in just a second. Let's see if I can get this short video going here. Because what we've done is we started an NGO, my colleague and I, and okay, let's see if I can get that happening in a share screen. There, okay, get that up. And I'm just going to give you a short video and then we'll have a little talk about it.
I'm Anna Siqueira, and I'm a co-founder of Reframery with Benson Honig. As a Latina immigrant originally from Brazil, I know the risk of feeling alone. Reframery brings innovative and scalable solutions for women to transform their communities through entrepreneurship by aligning economic, social, and environmental goals. And we emphasize the principles of entrepreneurial ingenuity, inclusion, and impact.
We just spend a couple minutes telling us shortly what you're interested in doing, why you're here, what you're trying to accomplish, obviously your name, but what is your dream and how can we help you achieve it?
We are doing more things in technology.
So those were very important because you wanted to obtain more traffic, more people coming to your website. We are going to spend about the third of our session with our worksheets from last class, your experience.
Our orientation is that we're doing more than just helping one person. We want to build community strength, community resourcefulness. Okay, so the question Dina raised was, what are some of the things that we are doing here in Hamilton, and what can the city of Hamilton do to kind of facilitate people getting through this COVID pandemic? And this is an example. In this particular case, for one cohort, we liaised with the YWCA, and we got a cohort of women, and worked with them for a month and a half in terms of advancing their small businesses and trying to make them grow and make them more viable. So we built a model where, we start with a research piece and then we track them over time, and then we bring them into a kind of a network where they begin helping each other and supporting each other. And then periodically have sort of get-togethers where we virtually engage them. What's different about what we've done that has never been done before really is, we've all heard of, you probably have heard of incubation. We have, every town has one, and we have a few of them in here in Hamilton. We have the Innovation Park, and they're useful, but they're very costly. And there are some problems with them in that the people that manage them usually are not entrepreneurs, nor are they researchers knowing very much about what research says. They're usually people that want to do good, but may not have all the tools. So by having a virtual incubator, we're in a position to help people without having to have a bricks and mortar presence, meaning the costs are negligible. So we've been able to, through different grants now, we've got 5 years worth of funding. And our next goal now is to build a blockchain community currency. So that would be, imagine Hamilton dollars. And Hamilton dollars will be issued to some of the people that live and work here. People would be able to buy Hamilton dollars or trade in Hamilton dollars. You think, why would you want to do that? Well, by buying Hamilton dollars, you're supporting micro business. You're supporting some of these very vulnerable people who are trying to start businesses. We might be able to provide it as a bank where you might be able to get some interest. Mind you, there isn't much interest anyway in your money, but we might be able to do that. Or you might just buy that money and just sort of send it out into Hamilton. You might buy $100 and see what happens and watch what happens, because if it's a blockchain community currency, we can do things with it and observe how it grows and how it develops and how it prospers. So the idea is not to create a Bitcoin, because it's not meant to be an item that just has, a huge growth. Rather, it's meant to be stable, meant to be, connected to either Canadian dollar or US dollar or a basket of currencies. The idea is that we would be buying and investing in our own community. And people would be creating businesses that are using an exchange media that stays in Hamilton, it doesn't go abroad. So we're hopeful that we're going to get more cohorts, more NGOs will connect with us and create new opportunities for more people. And we've got now, we're working with PATH, and we expect in January to start with persons with disabilities in Hamilton. So we're not sure exactly what kinds of disabilities they have, but that's going to be a new cohort that's coming in. We're also starting a cohort with Kenyan sex workers that'll also be starting next month. And we're going to continue working with women and immigrants and marginalized communities generally. So, what can Hamilton do? Well, I think, one thing is we need to get more cohorts. We need to develop better relations with different community organizations that can provide sort of pre-screened people that are committed, that are committed to trying to start a business. And then if we can get this blockchain currency off and running, I'm looking forward to having people in our community say, yeah, you know what, we'll buy 100 Hamilton dollars and we'll use them. We'll use them for babysitting, for lawn mowing, for gardening, for whatever. And what that's going to do is it's going to create economic development in Hamilton. So those are like two concrete measures that I hope that through the reframery that we've developed, we'll be able to leverage and enhance participation across Hamilton. So I think that's pretty much what I had to say, but I want to open up to and have time for questions. If anyone would like to get more details on anything that we're doing or are curious about.
Benson, I would like, thank you very much. That was very, very interesting and illuminating. I just wanted Khadija to also say her piece, and then everybody can ask questions. Maybe some of the questions people have, Khadija might answer. So I want her to have her presentation, and then everybody can ask questions or by chat or in person.
Great, because I want to hear what Khadija has to say too. Yes.
I guess I will hold my questions for Benson afterwards. That's what I'm hearing. Okay, great. So yeah, I can definitely share my screen with you all, and then we can get the ball rolling. Just make sure that it is actually full. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to stop it actually and start it again. Perfect. Oop, looks like I lost it. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet?
Are
Oh,
you sharing?
yeah, I'm sharing. All right, let's try. I'll stop again and I'll reshare it.
We,
Seems like
we
we're
saw
having-
it before. We saw it
We
before.
did see it
Yes.
before. So I wonder why it's not popping up now. All right, there we go. Can
There we
everybody
go.
see it now?
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
coming.
Yeah, we got it now.
Perfect. Yes.
Great. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Abhija Hamdu, and I am the Executive Director for Workforce Planning Hamilton. Dina just gave a really great explanation of, myself, my background, but once again, just looking into labor market information and the growing economy with provincially wide as well as Ontario wide and Hamilton wide. So once again, just looking at the impact of COVID-19, I'll just jump right into the conversation. So a little bit more about Workforce Planning Hamilton. As Dina mentioned, we are a non-for-profit organization, where labor market issues are proactively addressed, as well as, having these ongoing conversations with organizations so that they can potentially achieve their goal. We are funded in part by the Government of Canada as well as the Government of Ontario, which is why we look at an overall provincial-wide impact. We work very closely with employment agencies, as well as the City of Hamilton, job seekers, schools, employers, honestly, any Hamilton community member who is interested about the labor force and the labor market, as well as the economy, always feel free to reach out to Workforce Planning Hamilton, as we are here to provide information back to the community. So as I jump into it, I think one of the first questions that Dina asked was, what was the impact of COVID-19? So I think just this article, the way that we've put in a few different articles in this slide really showcases, the ongoing conversation that we were being able to have. So in 2021, the challenges really identified clear trends in the labor market as there were still many uncertainties. And as we, are in December now, there are still a lot of uncertainties happening with COVID-19. So that's something to really keep in mind when we're looking at the impact, not only looking at the impact for today, but also looking at the impact on how it will be in the next few weeks and months and overall the next year. So one of the main features that I really wanted to showcase at this point was the, my screen is going a little haywire here, was the job posting decline during the lockdown. So as you can see, when we had our 2021 lockdown, which started again in March, we saw that there was a decline in job postings. But then as we continued having these conversations about reopening, we saw that those job openings went way up. So which was great, but it didn't really create a clear picture of what the economy was going to be looking like. As we moved into October, November, and even during this month of December, there was a modified change with restrictions, but knowing and understanding that these job postings really are trying to highlight, some of the past economic recoveries and understanding what is going to be happening with these employees. So as Dina also mentioned, just looking at the business impact survey. So that is our Employer One survey that we do yearly with the City of Hamilton, with the Chamber as well as a partner. We've been able to really get a better understanding of some of the employers' feedback and their understanding of the impact of COVID-19. So one of the major questions I really wanted to showcase in 2020 leading into 2021 was, how did COVID-19 impact your business? We saw that there was a huge response, about 26% of these response, and this is over 1,500 employers who were able to respond to this survey. So out of the 1,500, 26% of employers and business owners said that there were a decrease in their business revenue between 25% and 49%, which is just so unfortunate to hear. And then we did see, it going between 16% and 14% between the decrease of almost up to 74%. So as you can see, there was such a huge impact with business owners. And this is, as we continue on this conversation, we thought it was very important to get a better understanding of what is impacting businesses currently. So something that I would love for you to stay tuned for is our 2022 Business Impact Survey, also looking at employers and small to medium businesses in the Hamilton region. So another part of the impact of COVID-19 was looking at younger and core age workers, where we see the most employees losses. So as you can see here, I've highlighted it in yellow. So for ages 20 to 24, there was a -4% change in their current employee status. So you can see that a lot of young people were losing their jobs drastically as we continued on the conversation. Actually, which was interesting, 65 years and over were able to keep the same role that they were currently in, or if anything, prosper. But we know that that's not overall the main picture here. And I think that's something important to really focus on, is that, as the age fluctuates, we see that the employment status definitely changes. So we wanted to look into this a little bit further and get a better understanding of what is currently happening in Hamilton as well as provincially wide. So the top growing, and I thought something was interesting, was the top growing and declining industries in Hamilton. So as you can see here, the top growing, sorry, am I the only one that's hearing that? Okay, no worries. I'll just keep going. So the top growing industries were 50, so professionalism, scientific and technical.
Sorry, Khadija, just
I'll probably stop.
Can everybody mute, please? Can everybody mute? Thank you.
Is this a big one? Yeah, I got huge news. The next Lotto Max jackpot is $55 million, plus an estimated 4 max.
Who is that?
What do I do with that? From beach houses to helicopters. If you can dream it, you can dream it bigger.
Does he just live in there?
It looks like it is Len. Len, do you mind just putting yourself on mute? All right.
I just muted Len, so it's okay.
I think we should be good to go. So once again, jumping right into the conversation, looking at the impacts of COVID-19 with the top growing and declining industries in Hamilton. So as you can see, the top growing profession within Hamilton was professional, scientific, and technical services. Very much the field that both Benson and I and Dina are in. We saw that there was, as we continued on, the transition between going from the office to working from home was definitely a difficult transition, but it still upheld some of the work that we were able to do. If anything, let us prosper a little bit more within the work that we were trying to get done. So that transition wasn't too big, but as you can see, educational services was one of the top declining industries, with the schools closing down, teachers going back to online, teachers losing their jobs. Childcare was also a huge issue with, and then as you can see, real estate and rental leasing definitely skyrocketed back up as one of the growing industries, whereas we saw manufacturing and healthcare, social assistance, all the organizations, all the businesses, all the industries that had to be face-to-face became the declining industries, because we saw that everybody had to remain home. So something to keep in mind as we continue this conversation. Now, another question that we really wanted to, I wanted really to focus on was, what are some of the programs, what are some of the things that the City of Hamilton is currently doing? What are we doing as a community to, really get on track with this recovery stage? So So continuing to explore employers' needs to get a better understanding of where opportunities are in our local labor market. So we've been able to be a part of so many great conversations within the city of Hamilton. So going into upgrading Hamilton's only labor market information source. So Workforce Planning Hamilton is releasing a new and updating our new website, which is great news. So 2022, new year, new website, where we'll be actually hosting the largest job board in the Hamilton region. So something to really keep in mind regarding, if you are looking for a job, we do have this platform, not only where you'll be able to look at, some of the jobs that you're interested in, but it also goes into career laddering, where you're able to get a better explanation of the different opportunities that may lay in that one job field. So let's say you are interested in education. It really gets almost a web effect of what the different forms of education and what those job fields may lay. So I think that's something that is really going to be impactful in the Hamilton community, because it is the largest job board where you'll be able to get job postings from Indeed, job postings from Charity Village. So an abundance of different job postings in one centralized website, and then on top of that, being able to really dig deeper to get a better understanding of what that job is, the amount of money, how to get to that job. I think transportation is a big conversation during the pandemic, so that was definitely something that I wanted to highlight. We were also able to release our weekly newsletters. So subscribe to Workforce Planning Hamilton, where you'll be able to get these weekly updates on what the economy looks like as we continue on, especially with December being, a new variant coming into the Hamilton region. It's always important to really keep up to date with what is going on with the economy as well. Another priority that we really looked into was understanding the competencies needed, available currently and in the future. So once again, identifying what skills are needed among current openings and what skills there are among the unemployed that is crucial to understanding what needs to be done. So we were able to reach out to, while taking the responses from the Employer One survey, we were able to follow up with those employers and small and medium businesses who were interested in continuing the conversation. So over the last 6 months, we've been communicating with employers, doing surveying, just to get a better understanding of, what are current apprenticeship programs that are happening in the Hamilton region. If I go back to the last slide, I really focused on the fact that manufacturing was one of the declining industries. So we really wanted to focus on construction and manufacturing and those apprenticeship programs that would be able to help employers prosper. So getting more employees on board and having that commitment to teaching them and getting, that commitment of, the soft skills that go into apprenticeships. So something to keep in mind here. So we were able to reach out to about 100 employers, and we've been able to really connect them with organizations such as the YWCA, Goodwill, Wesley, who else? Pathways was also one of them, John Howard Society. So a lot of different Hamilton organizations connecting with small to medium businesses. The one question I actually had for Benson was the barriers for youth and actually looking at entrepreneurship. But what we looked at was barriers for youth entering the labor market. So we recently created a digital platform that looked into the Hamilton youth workforce and giving youth a larger voice in, their experiences with employment in the Hamilton region and what they are looking for in regards to networking opportunities, and just as well as showcasing and sharing their successes as well as challenges regarding employment. So that was definitely something that I wanted to highlight regarding some of the priorities. I'll jump right into it so that I know that we are a crunch of time, but We were able to encourage and promote best practices in recruitment and retention, as well as recently connecting with the Canadian Mental Health Association for doing mental health and effects for the unemployment. So looking at mental health and employment with CMHA, as well as some legal advice for employers, as well as employees on how to better support each other regarding that transition from the pandemic, working from home or not working at all, and then going back into the workforce. So those were some of the key priorities that I really wanted to highlight. And throughout this conversation, we were able to have a lot more community engagement with that. And we were able to take these priorities and bring it back out to the community to see what was crucial for them and what was critical for them. So as you can see, the top trending priority for the community was identifying critical labor market trends in the post-pandemic evolving economy. Something to keep in mind is when I'm saying the community, this is not an overall community approach. This was definitely a lot of these organizations, a lot of EO providers, a lot of community members who are working in these industries, in these organizations, and bringing it back out. So it's not, it wasn't a big population, but it was a population that worked with the larger Hamilton population, which I thought it was very interesting. And then in second came the understanding of the availability currently in the future, as well as barriers for youth entering the labor market. So that was definitely something that as we continue into 2022, it is definitely something that we are going to be focusing on regarding our programming. We see that, you know, as much as we want this to go away, we know that there's so much more happening with this pandemic, and it's going to continue happening at least for the next year. So we just want to make sure that, you know, we are really focusing on these critical priorities and understanding how we can better support the community. So I'll leave it at that. And once again, you can reach us at info@Workforce Planning Hamilton. We do have an Instagram page. We do have Facebook, Twitter. We have it all on social media at Workforce Planning Hamilton. Stay tuned for our new website that's going to be released January 3rd, as well as our new Instagram page, which is Hamilton Youth Workforce, focusing on youth and employment. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much. And I'm excited for your questions.
So Khadija, thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. And I'm opening it up for questions. And because I am the moderator, I'm going to, you know, jump in and ask my question. And
Go for it.
My question is actually for you, Khadija, because maybe you know, maybe you can shed a little bit more light about the economic recovery task force that the city of Hamilton put together. And what are they doing and how does that dovetail with, you know, Hamilton?
So the city of Hamilton has just got approval from the council regarding their upcoming strategy. So they have about 77 priorities that they are going to, and strategic planning that they're going to be releasing back into the city. So one of their major strategies look at workforce development. So we are actually going to be teaming up with them to have this larger conversation about, you know, what are the priorities regarding workforce. But there is so many different priorities. There's about, like I said, there's about 77 different priorities at this point that the city of Hamilton is focusing on. And we are very much interested in hearing more about it. So they actually are going to be releasing their presentation tomorrow, on Thursday. So Thursday morning, they'll be releasing it out to the public. And then that way we'll be able to get a better understanding of some of the work they're doing. But I know actually I was able to meet with Norm just this morning, and he really focused on the understanding of even Wi-Fi, providing Wi-Fi for the city. We saw that during the pandemic, there were a lot of people who did not have access to Wi-Fi. We saw that, I even saw it myself, just walking past the libraries, you would see people parked outside of the libraries just trying to get access to Wi-Fi. So that's something that they're really trying to change. There's a lot more in-ground work that's trying to be updated. So I'm really hopeful for the city of Hamilton regarding some of these strategic plans. And, you know, we would love to be a part of that conversation.
Thank you. Yes, Lori.
I have a question. Well, one for Khadija and one for Benson. So for Khadija, I'm surprised that the mental health component on your thing wasn't even higher than you showed, because from what I've been hearing about the impact, especially on women, it's very high. And have you encountered that as well?
Yes, actually, we have. Once again, the population that we were surveying just finished up with our mental health and employment webinar. So I think that's maybe why the numbers were a little bit more skewed, because they just got a bunch of information maybe about a week ago. So the thing is that mental health and employment is definitely something that's on our radar. It's an ongoing conversation. We had these conversations. I think Pathways actually just hosted another mental health and employment. And as they continue on having these conversations, definitely something to check out is the Canadian Mental Health Association of Hamilton, who focuses on that mental health component and different priorities. So they've been releasing a lot of great information regarding that. So I definitely suggest you checking that out. But we know that mental health has had a huge impact, especially during this pandemic. Working from home, being isolated at home, doing all of these things where you can't even see your family and friends, also definitely taking an impact on yourself. I know that everybody here definitely had an impact regarding this pandemic. And I think it's important to continue these conversations as we see where the pandemic is going. We see that, once again, it's December. We just had this update about the Omicron variant, and that must be affecting people's mental health at this point, because there is this idea of when is this going to end? And that is definitely, the unknown at this point. So as we continue on with this pandemic, we really want to balance it out with having these open and honest conversations about mental health.
Thank you. And just
Thank
a
you,
quick one for Benson. You mentioned Reframery has gotten some grants to get it going. What are you thinking about in terms of long-term funding?
Well, my fantasy is that this blockchain community currency is going to take off and possibly be global, in which case we would actually become a community bank, which would self-fund us. So this is maybe a Herculean dream, but there is no one exists doing this now. And if we can demonstrate that it works and we can develop it and launch it, there is a possibility of creating a sustainable enterprise that would go around the world, creating these community currencies and banking them and exchanging them. And that would, and by the way, the cost for running this thing is negligible anyway. It's really mostly the cost of doctoral students, and our time is volunteered when it's faculty time. So it's not like this is a huge drain. Something like the Forge, that costs a lot of money. So we're like probably, maybe 3% or 4% of what the Forge costs, and that's a typical incubator. So the costs aren't that great, but if we can capture that piece of the market, we've got something that would go global that could really be powerful. The alternative also is that we plan to kind of encourage the free franchising of our model. So let's say there's a, Khadijah asked about youth employment. Let's say there's a youth organization that wants to kind of facilitate helping young people start their own businesses. We can help them build their own Reframery model and launch it and cover it themselves. So we see an opportunity to kind of diffuse the model globally without us. How we can demonstrate it with research, and other people can copy, and we can provide the tools and the manual and the structure for people to easily replicate it. So that would be, a way of having an impact without us actually physically doing it.
Benson, I had a question regarding the graph that you had at the beginning of the presentation, where it's a two-part question. The highest vertical axis showed for countries like Angola or Togo. Italy was the lowest. That's one that I couldn't quite understand. The other thing that caught my eye was comparing Israel to Canada. Israel was slightly lower than Canada. So the question comes, how early are these figures relevant to? Because I'm thinking of startup nation, and how come Canada is higher than Israel? As the wave of Startup Nation diminished now? It's not as much as it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago? That's my question.
So that's a good question. That goes into is entrepreneurship a silver bullet? Because it's not. A lot of there's a necessity-driven entrepreneurship and opportunity-driven. So if you're in Angola, you have a choice: starve or start a business. You're going to start a business, and there's going to be lots of people starting businesses. If you've been to India or any emerging economy, you see people doing all kinds of things, making $1, $2, $3 a day. They're business people. There are lots of them. So the statistics, when you go and ask people randomly, are you alone or with partners engaged in starting a business or involved in a business, the numbers will be higher in very poor countries. Now, Israel's startup nation, that's different type of animal entirely. That's an animal based on usually venture capital. These are high-tech firms. These are startups that are usually started by engineers and programmers and scientists. So there's a huge amount of human capital involved. And usually they're very early on, there's investment, if not in time, often in money. So the actual numbers of startups in Israel may not be so great, but the success of selling those businesses is really high. Canada, unfortunately, we're kind of in the middle in the sense that we start a lot of businesses and they go to the US, okay? That's true in Israel too, but Israel is very good at building them and selling them. We're less good at building them and selling them. A few good ones that we build usually go to the US. What we have here in Canada is a different environment where there's a lot of family businesses and small businesses. That's not a bad thing. It's just a different model. Each country is going to have a slightly different model based on its economy. And that's why I'm saying there's no singular advantage to saying we have more entrepreneurs per capita than anyone else in the world, just like there's no advantage to saying we have more lawyers per capita or more scientists per capita, because someone still has to take out the garbage and fix the plumbing, right? And drive the trucks. As we see now, there's a shortage of truck drivers. And right now we're all suffering from that, right? So the real question is, can we get the right people to do the work that they're passionate about at the right time, and can we support them? That's what we should be asking. And that happens at any age, from arguably from 12 to 75. We ought to be able to support, and in Hamilton, we need to come up with new measures and models to support the people that want to start businesses and that want to, in the communities where they live, to do what they want to do. But it shouldn't be a replacement for people having good jobs or having a high income. It should be for those people that are driven for one reason or another. They want the independence, or they want they have the passion to do something that they want. So that's more the opportunity. In other words, I'm arguing we need more of the opportunity-driven entrepreneurship. We certainly don't want to get into the necessity-driven entrepreneurship.
Thank you.
Susan, go ahead.
So I think all of us have noticed during the pandemic, when you go into a restaurant or other service-based industries, there just aren't people working there. And I'm wondering, are there any kind of programs that are focusing on retraining or helping people to get jobs? I'm not talking about entrepreneurship. I'm talking about jobs for people and then those jobs actually will help businesses, because so many businesses are suffering with the job loss that they've experienced, the loss of workers that they've experienced.
I can take this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so once again, there are so many different programs right now running in the Hamilton community that focuses on just, that training. What we've noticed a lot is employers have mentioned soft skills being an issue regarding, that hiring practice, and, having employees be a part of their organization or their business, but just not having those soft skills regarding, coming in on time and, being passionate about the work that they have been a part of. So a lot of programs right now are really focusing on soft skills and those retraining a lot of employees on how to, be more passionate about their work. Another focus is on apprenticeships. We've seen that, like I've mentioned before, there was a huge decline in manufacturing construction. So many organizations are really focusing on that apprenticeship piece. So once again, we are trying to work with Hamilton employers as well as Hamilton organizations to combine the two, because what we see is there are these programs happening, but a lot of employers are not aware of the fact that these apprenticeship programs are happening in the Hamilton community. So one of the projects that we were able to work on is reaching out to about 100 small to medium employers and getting them to get a better understanding of the programs that are happening in the Hamilton community so that we can connect these new and trained employees back into these businesses. So I hope that answers your question. But if you take a look at, organizations such as the YMCA, the YWCA, Goodwill, Pathways, all of these programs are really focused on that reskilling. So definitely take a look at some of these programs and reach out to us if you have any questions regarding that.
I just add a small point, and that is I've been involved in the MyTax program. MyTax is a provincial program that supports, it pays 50% of the salary for any person training and working with an organization on a particular skill development. And I've had some of my students working with organizations in that capacity. A huge amount of that money goes unused. Nobody taps it. So, there are these programs that are out there that are not being publicized or not being utilized, which is really a shame, because it seems like in many ways, both the province and the government they understand the needs, but we're missing that last piece that convinces businesses and training organizations, universities and community colleges to kind of create that link. That's really that's the last mile, so to speak, is where we're probably having the biggest gap.
Absolutely. And I will just piggyback on Benson a little bit regarding the employment piece. And what employers are saying is that they feel like it's harder to, put this emphasis or put this responsibility on themselves regarding these apprenticeship programs. They feel like, a lot of it is, there's a lot more work that needs to be done before they take these people on. And then what a lot of employers need to know is that, it starts right at home. I think that commitment and that training opportunity also relies on these employers to really take people under their wing and show them how to be passionate about their businesses. So I think it's both ways regarding the programs that are happening, the lack of attention that's going into these programs, as well as the lack of information going back to these businesses as well. So something to keep in mind.
I know, Chaim, that you had a question about to Khadija about the 50 to 29 age group, showing an increase. Chaim, are you still interested in that? Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So we saw that there was an increase. It was about 25% increase during the pandemic. And that was actually a question that I wanted to bring back to Benson regarding entrepreneurship, because we noticed that a lot of youth during this time, being at home, created a lot of businesses, online businesses. So if you take a look at social media, you would see that a lot of youth started to do their own private businesses, where they're, showcasing their skills, but through their own company. So that was definitely why there was an increase in that piece, specifically a lot of jobs. And then on top of that, Benson also mentioned the fact that there was a high demand in these temporary jobs, such as the retail jobs and all of that. We did see a decline once we shut it down back during the lockdown, but there was at one point when we got these statistics, we saw that there was an increase because a lot of people weren't willing to do these face-to-face jobs. So a lot of youth took on those roles as well as that entrepreneurship. So that's why you would see that increase.
There's also crazy jobs being created. A neighbor of ours is making an income on TikTok. It's like,
Exactly.
what? How do you make money on TikTok? Well, you can, right? So
social media.
Exactly. So there's all these new things happening that, we are maybe not fully aware of that are happening in the marketplace. Again, emphasizing these labor market transitions that are accelerating as a result of COVID. So it's not like they're going away. No, what would have taken 10 years now is happening in a year or two. And so we have this kind of rapid transition, but that creates opportunities, and suddenly, it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a TikTok, a TikTok, artist or whatever. That's going to be a legitimate career for lots of people. There's going to be a lot of these kind of new innovative activities. And I think that's where young people are jumping into it, because it's fun, it's interesting, it's new, and there's no competition, because we who have the skills and the jobs and the money and all that are not involved and are clueless about that stuff. Because if we were, maybe we'd be locking them out, right? We're not locking them out, and they're jumping in, and it's a great opportunity. So that's a good thing.
We coming to the top of the hour, so do we have any last question? No, anyone? Okay. So I would like to thank both Khadija and Benson for an illuminating discussion on Hamilton economic recovery. Things are in flux regarding the COVID pandemic, and Hamilton economy are facing new challenges daily. We are not yet out of the woods, both economically and health-wise. It is reassuring to understand the response of the city to these challenges. And I think that we just started the discussion tonight. And thank you. I think that we can have those discussions because people with the knowledge and with the research behind can come and give us the background, and then we can go on and talk about it ourselves. So I really, really want to thank you very much for spending the time with us.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you,
night,
it was
everyone.
great.
Stay safe.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.